How's it going, everybody? My name is Antwaine Debnam, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Trade Secrets by Tripletote. Today, I have a very, very special guest who has an extremely successful company, and she's in the creative space, which I love. And her name is Natalie Sweeney, and she owns a company called LifeCare Design. Hi, Natalie.
Hi. Thanks for having me, Antwaine.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. You design buildings, you do architecture, your company does architecture.
Yes.
Before doing this thing, which I want to get into a lot because there's a lot of neat stuff that you've done in pictures that I've seen, where did you start? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Connecticut, mostly in Stamford, Danbury, a little bit of Greenwich. I was born there, and yeah, I lived most of my life in the southern part of Connecticut.
Awesome. Now, after graduating, say even high school, what school did you stay in Connecticut for school? Did you go to school here? Did you go away?
I went to FIT. I started with interior design. I did a lot of art in high school, and so I wanted to do art, but then that didn't seem too practical.
Understood.
So then I signed up for interior design at FIT, and then I was commuting back and forth, Stamford, New York. And then life took a more personal note, and with my ex-husband, then we had a baby, and then another one, and then we decided to move down to Houston. So my studies, when I went back to school, I decided to do architecture instead.
Nice.
Yeah, so I went to University of Houston.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, how did it feel transitioning? I mean, you were still in the art space, design space from your artistic talent, but how did it feel switching onto this major? Were you a little bit scared about if it would work out or anything?
No, I mean, I didn't really like the physics and the math part. I knew there was a lot of that. But I also felt, to even do other things, the more creative things, being an architect, it basically allows you to do all that.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I remember my first, when I went to college in Atlanta, I thought I was going to do computer programming, and then like the first day of class, the professor was like, yeah, I once spent a whole week in coding zeros and ones, and I made one mistake and it didn't work on Monday. And I was like, no, thank you. That's not me.
Right. And I took a basics class in high school, and I realized by the end of that semester.
And it's interesting sometimes how you have an affinity towards something, but there's a skill you need to develop that's not your strong suit, but your passion for what you're doing powers you through to get that done.
Yeah.
So how did you feel when you finished school? Did you feel like you were like really, really, really excited about the world of architecture?
Yeah, my last semester, actually, U of H has a kind of an exchange program with a town in the southwest of France called Saintes. And so at the time I wanted to do my last semester there, and it's kind of like an urban design, urban planning type of studies. And I was able to go, and I'm a Franco-American, I'm a dual national, so I was able to go there.
Nice.
And without much problem, and was able to take the girls as well, because the cultural center was a restored abbey, and so we stayed in monks' quarters basically.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
So your daughters now, have they been back? Do they have a kinship with the country because they kind of had some of their childhood there?
Well, very much so, because with my husband at the time, we figured, well, we didn't really want to go back to Houston, and there was a recession going on too, so Connecticut wasn't that great. And since I could work there and live there, I stayed.
Wow, how long were you there? Was it just a semester or was it extended?
No, we stayed for 8 years.
Nice.
Yeah, stayed for 8 years. The kids went to school there. It was a great experience. experience for everyone. But when they became teenagers, it was time to say, okay, you stay here for good, or we go back. And since my mother was born in France, and I have family on the other side of France, we decided, she lives here though, and my father as well. So then I decided, well, my aging parents, I'm going to come back.
Yes.
I want the kids to come back here and get a little bit more Americanized, and yeah.
Now let me ask, the food. Everybody thinks and says France has some of the best food. Would you co-sign that? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, you could find bad food there too. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, they have fast food, but no, they do have like a market system that's great. So you can always get lots of fresh food, lots of fresh vegetables. You have like the delis there. They use the local foods to make prepared foods, so you can find a lot of great prepared food. You have your hypermarkets too, where there's a lot of commercialized food. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But there's many more ways to avoid all of that, and eat really well. And the school system over there, the kids are taught from very young to eat well. They sit down with, they set tables. They have pitchers of water. There's a server. One kid's designated the server, and they bring food from the local farms. So, my girls, when they first started going there, they were like, "Wow, I had this lunch." And I said, "So what did you eat?" She says, "Well, we had marinated mushrooms first, and then we had this breaded chicken fillet with green beans, and then we had some cheese, and then we had a piece of fruit."
And I think the great thing about there is that they really, like you said, they teach it and they put it inside the culture. Like even the restaurants that we have here, they have different food standards over there. And I remember like eating at McDonald's, and the serving size was a little smaller, but I guess because of what they were required to do with the food standards, it actually looked like the pictures of the food on the menu, and it tasted a little bit fresher. I remember when I bought a Coca-Cola, on the back it said no sodium, so there was no sodium in it. And so I was like, wow, they really like embody this thing where they're going to make sure that the food that comes through here, whether, like you say, they do markets or in school, even in fast food restaurants, are of a certain standard. And I really enjoyed that. It really tasted good.
Yeah, they do have more policies to keep even commercialized food cleaner in certain aspects.
That's right. That's awesome. Now, when you decided to come back to the States, how did you get planted back up and running in architecture?
Well, that's kind of a story, because when I went over there after I finished my semester, I had been promised a job in an architecture company, and then that person did not get this large project that he wanted, so then that job fell through. So then I was, basically stuck there in France, and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? I applied everywhere, and we were in a small region. The town was maybe 30,000 people. So I ended up working, after a stint picking apples, I ended up working for the county office that promoted patrimony and tourism. And patrimony is, all of their historic buildings, basically. And tourism, they wanted to combine that, and they created this project. And me and this other girl, we got hired to do this project. So I did all of the plans of Romanesque churches. I went and measured them because they didn't have enough archival material already. So for this county, I measured 12th century churches and other types of buildings, like where the outdoor structures where they would wash clothes, and 300 years ago, things like that. I did all of those plans, surveys and plans, as well as illustrations of the historical monuments. I have that one up there is of a fort in Rochefort. I have a picture up there. And then when we took all of this information, the tourism part came in now, we constructed a series of panels in the little town centers, translated in 3 languages to promote rural tourism. So the idea was you go to one, and then it would give you a little circuit of where the other things are, either walking distance or bike or car, and then you can do a little circuit within that area to keep people in the countryside.
So how, like if somebody toured from the first picture to the last picture you guys lined up and went through the program, let's say, how much territory did that cover? Were they all like in a small area but rural, or were they like
that county was 169 little towns. Yeah.
Wow.
So maybe equivalent to like Fairfield County. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, you had the idea that if we go to where everybody already is, and we give them incentive to have this adventure of going from one historic location to another, we can get them to travel what will basically be the extent of Fairfield County when they had no intention of going to the rural area at all.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yep, and part of that idea is, they stop at the local farm or the goat farm where they make cheese. There's several of those over there. They pick up some cheese, they go to the little cafe, the little local cafe that normally sees just the rural people there, and and it helps spend money in the countryside.
Now, did you ever have a chance to accumulate feedback from the businessmen that were out in the road, or the farmers, or even the residents that, hey, because of your...
Yes, it became quite a solicited thing from all the mayors in the little towns that we went on to do it to two more other counties.
Wow.
The Rochefort area and the Royonnais area. So yeah, all in all, we ended up doing 3 counties.
That's amazing. You guys, with an idea, sent
and
tons of people.
It won
throughout
actually
this area.
an interdepartmental, which is like the state level. It won an award for tourism and patrimony. They give awards over there for that.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That is huge.
It was a good time.
Wow.
So then when I came back here, when I came back here and I wanted to get back into construction, and I was still wrapping up for the last county. I started, I was still doing drawings and sending back. I was working I was staying at my dad's when we first came back while we were looking for a house. And then one day I'm like, okay, I just started calling the Yellow Pages. And I went through, just right in the vicinity, all the architecture companies. And then I had called LifeCare Design, and little did I know that at that time he had opened up his business for about a year. And he needed somebody, he had just gotten a large project at CCSU.
Gotcha.
He needed a project manager.
Yeah.
So I went and interviewed, and we hit it off because, he's from Europe, he's from Spain, and there was a connection, with the whole illustration thing I was doing and the historical monuments. And he knew I didn't have too much project management experience, but that, I was willing to learn. And so then I got hired. Yeah. That day
Wow.
for that.
So you guys have worked on some excellent projects, small, medium, large. LifeCare Design, you guys, if I'm not mistaken, have a focus. You really focus in the medical field, or you do all types of design, or both?
No, LifeCare is supposed to englobe, all of life's activities.
Understood.
That's where that name came from.
Yes.
Although when Herman first started the company, he did work for large healthcare companies in New York, and he didn't realize at the time that name could connote healthcare.
Yeah. Awesome.
But he intended it to be more life care. And then when I came on board, because we had so much work to do, he offered me a part of the equity.
That's awesome.
Because it was a burgeoning business, in order to, and I said, yeah, sure, it looks like something we can definitely do.
Wow. So I'll insert some of the pictures of the work that they've done. You guys are going to love it. It's just amazing. I have an affinity for architecture. I was just a fan of it because, again, it's one of those industries that you start with an idea and then you just actually build it out on paper, and you take something literally from on paper. It's not easy to put that on paper, but you take something as an idea on paper and you take it to, you assemble a team, or a team requests you, and you turn it into a giant, thousands of square foot structure that people end up working out of. There's commerce coming out of there. Even when you were back in Europe, you were using the ideas to generate more tourism and bring a country more to life. And that's why I love it, because it's artistic at its root, but it can do so much. It has so much power once you guys get going. Mm-hmm. And in a day-to-day with you, and like, what's a day in the life like for Natalie? Like, does it have a great flow? Is it chaotic? Is it ebb and flow? How is it?
It's many times chaotic, because you have several projects at different stages. Mm-hmm. So you'll have, maybe something under construction, like we have the market right now under construction, mm-hmm. but we're also starting the programming for a daycare in Waterbury. Mm-hmm. We also have a residential project that's midway in the works. So you do have all of these people still needing things, day to day, and you can't just really focus on one thing for a long period of time, because the other thing always comes in some certain time. Somebody calls, or you need to deal with the building inspector. Mm-hmm. You need to review codes. You need to design. The design in the end in an architecture business usually comes down to maybe 5% of your day. The actual schematic design, where your thought concept and what you're going to do. The rest of it is doing the actual drawings, make sure you comply to all the codes, and then interface with the clients. We're also working on, next to the market, at 1420, it's going to be a distillery, but it's going to be more than a distillery. It's going to be sort of an experiential thing with an outdoor space and a bar, but not your traditional bar based on creative cocktails. So it's there's all kinds of things we're thinking about all the time. So one of our current projects is the Parkville Market here in the Parkville neighborhood, and it's a 20,000 square foot food hall based on something similar to the Chelsea Market or Faneuil Hall in Boston. And if you can see, currently it's under construction. There are contractors there trying to get everything wrapped up for the beginning of March.
Now, do you have like one particular customer that will call you? And what I mean is is in the project with all the people involved, from the contractors to the financiers, what department or position person calls you to say, hey, we were talking and we have this idea, we want you guys to draw it up and make a reality? Who's that personally normally for you, or is it varied?
The owners of the people with the ideas, the people who want to, they already have an established business, or they're developers. Mm-hmm. We work with several developers. The distillery, for instance, is Hartford Flavors. We helped them put their first space together. Wow. And they've grown, and she's full of ideas. She's a great lady, and so now she has this other new idea to expand her space and the type of experiences she wants to give people. And so our job is to help her put her vision into concrete, brick and mortar, or
Yeah, you literally put it in you make it concrete, literally.
And to carve out the spaces that she wants and needs, and make it beautiful.
So let me ask, do you guys ever have the opportunity, or in the future, do you see you guys having the opportunity to input your own idea onto a space? Or?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Oh, nice.
It's a collaboration.
All the time.
Yeah, because they may want, a dining hall with a monumental stair, but then we can suggest, okay, but the monumental stair can turn in a certain way, or that can put a view where you can see people inside. There's many ways that we input our thought process. In the market, there's a bumper stop inside. It was a transit depot. where the train would come in,
yeah,
because
yeah.
this is an industrial area.
That's right.
And, here they made rubber tires. Over there they made typewriters and telephone cabins. And so that was the train depot that came in. And inside the building, there's this large bumper stop. And so I said, we got to save this, we got to use this. And for a while there, I was thinking, this is just going to get, tossed aside because of all the space constraints and all that. But the owner is, no, we're going to use it. So, I'm glad that they saw the value in what we saw, and that it's going to be a design feature inside the building.
Now, I watch a lot of HGTV. I don't mean to romanticize. I know that's super simplifying how complex what you guys do is. But one thing I like to what you just said is that some people, when they are house flippers or restorers, they want to keep the windows because they don't make those windows anymore. They want to try to protect the railings and it's the same thing about the bus stop. So when you go into places, do you find yourself like you're just in the middle of history, but do you find yourself like, I wish I could just take this out if they're not going to keep it because they don't make it like that anymore, and even though I don't know where it could go, I don't want them to destroy it.
Yeah, I've tried to keep things, or I call restoration places. If I know that we can't keep these certain doors because school codes have changed and security's changed, and like, can you please take these? And so sometimes it's heartbreaking when you see you can't keep something you really want to, because it's never going to get built.
That because it's not efficient. Right. As the people were handcrafting things back.
Right, yeah. Or, securities codes, policies change, and there's just, so many things involved. The HGTV, they make it look simple on TV, but there's a big crew in the background, and they hire architects doing drawings. I know some architects that worked on some of these projects, and they have to do like a Fast and Furious thing, and then they just show the
100%.
highlights.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think they all do something very similar. Obviously, this channel is very focused. But I see that, I wonder why these set of people on the show always run into this problem in every house they do, on every episode they do. But this person who does flipping houses on this whole other series, they never run into that same problem. So I see they highlight different things for their particular show. To your point that some shows have a niche, like every time we do this, we're going to run into a problem in plumbing. So get ready for that. That's what we do. And then somebody else, they never run into plumbing problems. It's interesting how they market it. That's awesome. What would you say on the other end, what is the most complex modern product you've worked on? Modern project you've worked on?
Well, adaptive reuse is usually complex, and we do a lot of that. That's when we take, like we've made loft apartments out of some of these large factory buildings. The market that we're doing right now, from turning a transit depot into an assembly space where people are going to gather, that has had its complications. I would say adaptive reuse projects are usually complicated more than straight brand new architecture.
Gotcha.
Because there's so many elements you can't foresee until you start digging up the ground, opening up walls. That's when you find out where all the problems are.
Now, a lot of people that I've encountered, at least on online, some social media spots, they're getting into modular homes because I guess the technology and the infrastructure to build modular homes, buildings, hotels has stepped up. Like, how do you guys feel about that? Do you guys work inside smaller projects like that too, or have you just come across things from the modular space?
Well, actually, yeah, we have designed a small apartment building. It's not getting constructed as yet, but it is, because it's on a busy corner, we did go the modular route, just for the reason that it's quicker to put up.
Yeah. And
so we won't be blocking that intersection for very long. And also because it allows us to use passive house, net zero type technology, which we're really focused on right now. And we can have this. We've been working with a modular company who's willing to build, a double thick wall, for instance, to get the amount of insulation we need, and And I think that's really going to be more of the wave of the future.
Yeah.
Is these type of collaborations where architects will use these type of facilities more to have things partially made and then assembled on site.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also think like net zero passive house is going to be very necessary in the future.
Of course, because the population keeps growing, and the ability to impact a space while building it is going to be more of a problem if we don't find out other solutions. And like you're saying, that may be one solution.
Well, the net zero is to be able to reduce your energy needs so drastically in the building, and it's because you super insulate it so that the efficient systems you use, you barely need to use them.
Gotcha.
The heating and the cooling, and you do need an air distribution system as well. And then in conjunction with that, if you put solar panels up on the roof, the amount of current you do need to run the systems, most of the times, there's a ratio between the users, the footprint of the building, how much solar you can put on top, and then how much electricity is needed for the building. There's a certain ratio, but we have a small 9-apartment building. It's about 5,000 square feet, the rooftop. And the amount of solar on that rooftop can generate enough electricity to run that whole building.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, we're in the works of really fine-tuning that and trying to get developers and some of our clients into doing more of the net zero to see the upfront cost has gone down quite a bit. It used to be maybe 20% more expensive. Now it's maybe about 5% more expensive. But the payback is getting better, like 3 to 5 years you've paid back, and then your utilities cost goes down to practically nothing, So we're trying to get some of our recurring clients on board with that type of technology, which isn't always easy.
Yeah, the great thing about all the technology you're talking about and the progression of design is that you're affecting dollars and cents, which for people who wouldn't normally care about something being eco-friendly, having less impact on the environment, when you're able to, like you're saying, display that, look, it used to be maybe a 10, 12-year turnaround for solar panels, and the only efficient way probably was to build it in when you built the home. To retrofit was not a good financial option, but now with the increase of technology and, like you're saying, increase in design, a 5-year turnaround is great for a piece of property. You know what I mean? Like, a car gets financed for 5 years. Right. A house is going to could last 100 years.
Right.
You see, your return just keeps growing.
So it would add value to the building, later on to resell it. But it's also a value to the community because there's less current demand, less electrical demand on the infrastructure, on the overall system. And it's helpful for climate change, to reduce
awesome.
your emissions and the whole thing, So it's the whole thing. It's part of that because there's also the type of materials you use. I mean, it's a little more involved. If you can go really all out and try and make sure, the embodied carbon and everything you choose to build with is very minimal. There's all kinds of levels, but at least if we get people to where their utilities go way down just by insulating and adding some type of free energy, we should all be doing that at least.
Wow. Guys, you just got a lot of good information. Now, going forward in the future, is there anything on the horizon that you're looking forward to? I know you guys are so ingrained with different projects at different stages of development and still getting, your phone's still ringing. Even this day we had to unplug the phone in here, guys, because it's still ringing.
The constant noise.
Yeah. So do you have the ability to etch out a space where you guys see something big on the horizon that you want to work in, or is the business so great that you just keep moving along the business path and it takes you there?
Well, part of it is moving along the business path, but we're also trying to move the path in our direction.
Yes.
Towards the niches that we appreciate more.
Yes.
I love adaptive reuse. This neighborhood is really, we've been here since 2006.
Yeah.
And this neighborhood is really built up.
That's right.
And we did a lot of the projects in this neighborhood alone. But, I love transforming a community. I love seeing how spaces get used and people enjoy it. And now we're loving more and more making spaces with great air quality, low carbon footprints, energy savings even for the inhabitants, the residents. So yeah.
One of the things that intrigued me about what you guys do, and then learning more in the middle of this interview, just learning so much more, is being a guy from Hartford, that I appreciate that you guys are literally rebuilding the city, one building that you're working on at a time. And I definitely, just as a Hartford native, appreciate that you guys are rebuilding this area. When people see buildings go up and they see things transform, they never really get a chance to see who's behind that, who's making that happen. And from that point, they feel uninvolved, but just having you here on the show shows people this is somebody who cares about the community, who's trying to find not just ways to develop property in the community for the community's use. These spaces you're developing across the street are for the public.
Right.
They're for the public to come there with their families, with their friends, enjoy the space, enjoy, you were telling me the other day, she's making it so that it's an open concept so the public can actually tour the facility and have an attraction, not just a business where they can come.
Right.
You guys are literally doing that in the community, and people here are going to benefit from it. So I really appreciate that, just as a Hartford native.
I appreciate being asked to do those projects. Part of it are the owners of these places who are pushing for this.
Yeah.
They are. There's a lot of very interesting people in Hartford who do have these, who do take risks, because these are risky ventures that they're doing.
That's right.
But they do have this vision and do want to push to make a better place. And I'm just glad that they see the value in hiring us to do it. And we have plenty of ideas. So yeah.
And as you guys see on the industry front, if you're still trying to find what your niche may be, your career would like to be, if you want to go back and change your career, architecture, when you hear it, sounds like something that may not be for you. But if you love real estate, if you love design, if you love creating, and you have a knack for something like architecture, it's not a dull industry. It's very, very active. You'll meet a lot of people. You're going to make a lot of things happen. She's even working to build up the community that I came from, that we live in. So definitely consider it as even a career option for yourself, because I know that when you're in school, words like architecture, just what? Engineering just became a thing within recent years, right? That used to be what? Why?
People are engineers,
But architecture is it's that hidden gem that any space you see you like, or any amusement park, that's architecture. Any entertainment venue you've been to, that's architecture.
Right.
They're involved in everything you love about any space you've ever enjoyed, and it's a good field that you could be in. And if you do well with it, it'll do well for you.
Yeah, that's true. It's we reach every place you look around. It's been designed by somebody.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. So Natalie, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. I want to thank you also for clarifying that LifeCare is about caring for all life. It's not just about making hospitals and medical buildings. That you guys are making all types of facilities for all types of people. And again, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for tuning in. You have a nice day.
Bye-bye.